My name's Chris.
Hello, I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast, and we're a day late, but we told you why. Ladies and gentlemen, Elena Duggan.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, how are we going?
I am so well, thank you, and I'm pleased to be here with you both.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, I'm delighted to have you on, and we can chat about things like Junior Masterchef and what you've been up to with your Junior Masterchef. And
He's doing quite a bit of stirring these days.
I'm shocked and appalled. I never believe he's doing a bit of stirring.
she means physical stirring, not like bachelorette stirring.
Probably both. Anyway.
Have you heard the latest?
He is the gossip insider and fellow diner. So if you're suddenly seeing stories about, I was about to say, if you start seeing stories about yourself in the media, it's probably just Jonathan leaking them.
Just fun.
He's talking to channels. Anyway, so obviously there's a couple of reasons we've got you on, and we'll talk about one of them a little bit later on, but we're going to start, of course, with the main reason that everyone's here, which is Junior Masterchef.
How awesome is it?
Oh, a ray of sunshine in an otherwise dark environment.
It's pure joy.
When we talked to you about this as well earlier, when we were talking about things like Andy and stuff like that, and we said this is the sort of thing that we think Andy's going to thrive in. And I think one of the things that came out a lot this week is just how good Andy's been with them. He's been amazing.
I think he has a very joyful inner child, and so he's letting it loose.
Absolutely. And I think that Scouts Australia should also give him a badge for being a big helper in the pantry. Like anyone who needs anything carried is there.
I wonder what that patch would look like.
Oh, that could be good.
Be like a little basket full of like goodies and like a hand, like helping hand.
If you're out there, if you're out there listening on right now, and you're out there on Twitter, please, by all means, if you want to design us a badge for that, tweet it to us. We'd really love to see it.
I'm now imagining.
Anyone need finger limes? I've got finger limes.
Finger limes. Have you ever heard, by the way, have you ever heard children say finger limes more? I don't.
How brilliant is it?
It's so good. So
I love that First Nations foods are just in all of their vocabulary, and it's not even like this is something I should do. It's just that's what should always have been. I love it. I love it so much. It should always have just been finger limes all the way along. Every random ingredient. And I haven't heard normal MasterChefs talking about balancing flavors as much as I've heard these children. Oh, it's brilliant.
Their understanding of how to balance a flavor, their understanding of how to balance a dish and the importance of balancing a flavor.
And the joy in which they receive, not joy, but kind of like the openness with which they receive like feedback, like, oh, okay, that's how I can improve it.
Absolutely. And they, that they're going to take it on and that they're going to go away and try it and come back and build on it. And they're just so thirsty for further knowledge, and that is going to increase their passion and increase their skill set. I really do love that openness, that thorough like sponge. They're just absorbing so much.
That's been something, and Twitter commented a lot, especially on Sunday night, where the feedback, rather than, again, when adults get feedback, you tend to be a bit more defensive. You know, you've got your sort of feedback, you've got your things you do, you understand your thing, and it's like, no, this is what I do. I do this and you're wrong, and just watch me do it. And what I've loved about the kids is every time they've got this level of feedback, you can just see, there was Ben the other day when he got the feedback where they went, we really liked what you did here, here, and here. And if you just added this, and you saw Ben's eyes light up and he went, oh, that's a good idea.
So what happens? Because all of the MasterChef junior contestants, are early high school and possibly end of primary school. So what is it that you high school teachers do to us at the end to make us come out questioning ourselves, feeling like we've got to be perfect?
I'm going to come to the defense as a MasterChef contestant. Like we just said, we're all very defensive. Come to the defense of high school teachers there. I actually think it's adulthood. We don't get given much feedback in our lives at all. As a primary school student, as a school student at all, you get given feedback daily, if not every period, if not every week, all of those sorts of things. So you're used to being able to go with it, choose what is going to be relevant to you to work with and grow on, choose what you want to keep on. As adults, we're sort of defending our identity as opposed to, but it's been so long since most of us have received feedback.
Yeah.
I think that's a part of it. I think that they're more open because they know that it's not all bad.
They're also, they're used to having people in sort of, positions of either a power or authority over them, sort of giving them advice or giving them some ideas.
Yeah.
So they're more sort of susceptible to it. Whereas you said adults are more defending identity and and in the case of a lot of MasterChef, defending brand.
Yeah.
Also defending a chance to win. Like the kids, you can see it on their faces. They think they've already won. Like the day they walked through the garden and saw the M on the building, they're like, I have won. This is it. Peak of my life. It can only get better from here.
Well, it's like Phenix last night.
Yeah.
Right? And when Phenix did her little bit to camera at the end, and I want to get this out of the way now because I don't want us all to finish on a really sad moment. But I thought Phenix was amazing. But when Phenix was talking to a bit to camera and talking about these are all my friends and we're all living our dream and I've got all my friends out of this, and this is kind of my sacrifice to them to make sure that they get to go on and live more of their dream.
That's a couple episodes in a row. She's had this awesome perspective and sort of like in terms of just correcting diva versus hero, etc. She's a force to be reckoned with, and she's a great leader. All of these kids have got incredible leadership qualities, and I'm thrilled that there are so many to choose from in terms of who to look up to, who to model this incredible citizenship and this just wonderful perspective. And I couldn't be prouder, and I don't even know any of them. I feel so proud of them.
We've had a couple of those. Again, Ben last night when he was talking about Indigenous food and Indigenous culture, that was like there were people tweeting and they were sort of only like half joking when they were like, in one little segment there to camera, Ben showed more compassion, humanity and understanding of Indigenous culture than you would see in an average couple of weeks on Australian television in one little bit to camera.
And it's that beautiful pride that came through, like, this is my history. It wasn't like, oh, this is separate to me, this is othered. This is part of his living history and our living history. It was just so nice to see it presented.
Yeah, diversity and heritage as celebration. And it's, in terms of, I can't remember where I posted it. Oh, in terms of Deadly Science, the Young Australian of the Year took his trophy around to a whole heap of potentially future deadly scientists to hold this award. It's not only important to be able to see it to be it, which all of these kids are representing, but this is very achievable. Like, this is really giving so many different kids or people of difference or people of different heritage. And we have recent immigrants they're not getting into the details for reasons of having to flee various countries, but this is the biggest warm, cuddliest hug that these kids are coming into this country with.
Well,
and how can we not embrace them right back? It's just
Well, to be honest with you, Filo, we all know that Filo, the reason that they left Egypt was clearly because the quality of lobster is better in Australia. and if you're going to be having lobster several times a week, if you're going to have lobster several times a week, then you've really got to be close enough to the water.
And you really have to think, do I want to battle sharks and stingrays and jellyfish and stuff, or do I want to go up against a hippo? The choice is easy. You're going for Nile lobsters killed by a hippo, or are you going to go for some sea-bearing lobsters where you only have to go up against a shark?
100%. That's much easier. Yeah. And people are far more susceptible to a good apple pie.
Good.
This is the thing, they've all got their own clear, distinct personalities, and they haven't been manufactured into the personalities.
No.
These are just these kids sort of live large. And live large, or in Georgia's case, quiet but very powerful and mighty.
Oh, how brilliant. Yes.
Georgia, okay, so a couple of people, I can't remember who it was, floated the idea that this series is really, while there's a lot of big heart-rendering moments, and there's a lot of great moments out there, and there's a lot of great sort of, passionate moments, it's really the quiet moments between Georgia and Jock, budding friendship on the gantry.
Well, no, they can no longer be friends.
Well, they can no longer be friends, but I get the feeling that will change, obviously, when Jock works out that what that means is more potato for him.
This week, and Elena, you'll probably have been cheering when you saw it, along with the rest of us gals. and feminists when Georgia turned around and claimed her credit. Like, there's Carter, we came up with this, and Georgia's like, no. I came up with that. I noticed that. That's my observation. And it's just like, yes, that's what we need. See more girls.
And you all took credit for it. So not only is she having her voice heard, she's teaching not only Carter, who I think is quite open to it and sort of very quickly went, oh, yes. Yeah. That wasn't mine to say, but what a great modeling of what should be basic skill set to the rest of the country's kiddies.
Absolutely. Like, it just, for me, gives me hope that the because we see improvements in every generation, you know, like we see now that where homophobia and transphobia and like gender is not the issue it was, you know, when I was at school and when my mum was at school, etc. And now we see young kids coming through who have strength in their voice and confidence in what they're saying and knowing that they have a right to be heard.
Absolutely. I think a lot of credit to their parents, caregivers, and teachers, and all of the adults who are giving them the support and encouragement to be themselves. All of those support systems in place, because I mean, for these kids to have that courage on their own, that's extraordinary. But I'm really grateful that everyone's just allowing one another to shine. They're not suppressing or changing.
No, there's particularly on national TV.
There's not been as many lines fed this week as there were last week, which I was really happy with. But so we've sort of from the sort of really serious to the slightly more amusing, which is, which one of them do you think greatly enjoyed their aging process more? I'm assuming Doc, first of all, and secondly, and secondly with this. So we had the aging process. For those who sort of, if you missed that little bit, because some people did miss actually the start of that, they all came out with their older versions of self. I thought it was funny, by the way, Andy was forced to have a shave to do it too, which was
so
great.
Funny.
Because when Andy got changed out, you're like, wow, he really has gone young. What, the Rejuvenator all of a sudden. For anyone who remembers the Late Show sketch, The Rejuvenator, you got that joke. But more importantly, after with Jock, he comes out and like, I'm going to keep this cane for a bit, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, his inner curmudgeon was able to shine. You know,
there was more good acting in that one scene than we saw from the three who shall not be named over all their seasons where they had to pretend to like dishes they hated.
It was a really cute moment, and I love that. I love the absolute raw expressions of, should we be scared, or like, how do we respond to this? We'll stay politely smiling until we know more.
When they aged them, they've aged like 20 years.
Yeah, at least 20 years.
I mean, I can distinctly remember back to when I was about 8 years old and calculated that in the year 2020, I would be 40, and I thought my life would be over. Now here we are, and I'm looking
at it's only just beginning. I mean, not 2020. Yeah. Let's focus on 2021.
Yes,
but
it's real. I find it really interesting. I mean, because I don't know about you, Elena, but in a school setting, kids have no grasp on age. So no, seriously, they look at teachers, and they have no grasp. They go with whatever they consider old,
right?
Yeah,
and
we're all in the same category.
Usually everyone, regardless of it, what really makes me feel great is that it doesn't matter if it's a teacher who's 2 or 3 years out, like they're mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
Or there's someone who's been teaching forever. Everyone's around mid 40s.
Yep.
Right, okay.
Ask the kids, they'll tell you everyone's mid 40s. We had a beginning teacher at the school I'm at who last year got told that she was 43, 44.
Right. Yep.
She's very clearly a 25-year-old. She was.
I must say, I once again sunk into that mindset when I was in uni, and I assumed everyone else was school leaving as me as well. I was like, wow, I'm just surrounded by the most worldly experienced people I've not lived. I'm like, oh no, they're 10, 15, 20 years older than you. Like, it's cool. You're only 17. It's cool that you've not done a lot else yet.
I thought that was a really interesting sort of idea for a challenge. The young and old.
Well, I think they're just having a lot more fun with it. They're allowing themselves to indulge their inner kids, production included. Some of the preview stuff that's coming up. There's a lot of fun And food should be fun.
And we're
I
seeing,
love this.
and we talked about it, last week we talked about it with Vale. We were talking about the kids are far more prepared to just take chances because they don't view this as like a deadly serious winner-take-all competition.
No, not at all. And even when they say they don't want to go home, it's like, I'm having so much fun. I'm learning so much. This is a wonderful experience. None of them are going because I want to win.
No, and that's the thing. So like you got, for example, this week you got the savoury shoe buns with the little sandwiches, which were sliders, which were absolutely brilliant.
So cute.
You get all these people just trying things.
And also not afraid to adapt once they've tried something and they're not sure. You see them problem solving on the spot, and I love that. They may not have ever tried something before, but they're like, okay, there's got to be another way. How can I solve this? So I really love all of that thinking going on as well. I feel like we watch a lot of it in real time.
and quite often the balancing answer is, as we said before, finger limes. But but it's been really interesting to watch because they're all very, the way they approach food, it's not like they're just randomly throwing things. There's a very cultured way they're approaching it too. And you look at people like, again, we talked about Georgia, and her understanding of flavor is immense. And I also loved her focus the other day when she was like working on something, and Jock's come over to like make really bad dad jokes, and she's looked at him as if to say, I'm a bit busy. You can come back, mate. I'm done. But I'm not buying into your television rubbish. You go away, come back when I'm ready. But then people like Vienna and the way that Vienna plates food. And again, I've obviously said Vienna Stan over here, absolutely think she's amazing.
Yeah.
Tiffany and the way Tiffany's been approaching her. And again, Tiffany just approaches with a sense of fun, and
she's got a similar food dream to me, young Tiffany.
Yeah, just making it accessible. I have had my world opened up because of your philosophy, sharing it, Elena, and to see it come through in Tiff, I'm just like, oh my God, she just wants to make carnivores happy too. So the T-Rex comes to her restaurant.
Has Jock ever been more satisfied with a dish?
I mean, her description even before, and I'm thinking, oh, it just keeps on getting better. Oh, and then add a layer of something else delicious, and oh boy. And when she presented them, they even had 2 more layers of deliciousness.
Yeah, it's like the steak was good, and then Jock's like, but can we go back to those carnivore Scotch eggs? Can we go back to the idea of the quail egg with the caviar on top of it, dipped in the pork crackle dust?
But
and
it's the blood sausage around the outside. I'm like, oh, hun, you have got it. You just know what to do.
There's so many layers, and didn't feel haphazard. It didn't feel thrown.
And I love that her food dream, and actually all of them, in terms of vulnerability is strength, resilience is positivity, life's challenges are celebrated as triumphs, their grandmothers and caregivers and their teachers are acknowledged and celebrated. None of these are stories that I'm seeing on social media being, oh, another nonna, or oh, here comes a sob story, or whatever. I'm thinking these kids are living that, and so we're able to, I don't know, relate, have more compassion, have more empathy, etc., and go, wow, look what they're doing from this challenge. And yet as adults, that's disappearing as well, in terms of this being a model for what all other TV shows should be. Really, I'm thrilled.
And well, it's because people are forced into a mindset of kindness. You can't be mean to a child. If you're mean to a child, you're just downright a douchebag.
And that's the thing.
And that's the closest I'm going to come to swearing.
A lot of people, well done. And a lot of people have been commenting on social media that they've never seen a Masterchef social media this nice. Everyone's friendly. Everyone's nice. I have not seen the anti-anyone comments. Everyone's just been, that's amazing. Do we have to send any of these kids home? No, seriously, do we have to send any of these kids home?
That sounds like a good mandate to use Twitter in the future. Act as if the person you're talking to is a 10-year-old cook.
Like, I now want to officially rename from the adult Masterchef the montage of mediocrity to the montage of merit. Because these people are still pulling out dishes that you'd be happy to have served up.
To be fair, if your dish is mediocre, you're not in a montage. If your dish is mediocre, you're in elimination.
Exactly.
So I think, I sort of agree with that. I think there's a couple of other things I think that have been amazing in this week. we talked before about Andy. I think we need to sort of go back and revisit a bit more of Andy, just because, again, we did give him so much of a hard time, and I think a fair hard time in the normal MasterChef series. I think that in Junior, again, as you said before, Elena, he's got a lot of that kid inside. And I think he's been able to express a lot more of that. But the other thing I think that was brilliant was having him do the cook-along. I thought his work with the kids on that cook-along with Andy and Keep Up with Andy was absolutely brilliant.
It was balanced. He wasn't patronising. He was helpful. He communicated with them, at their level, but without, without that patronising, speaking down to them. He was expecting them to keep up.
Yep.
And if they were having trouble, he was there to support them.
It's a hard
I have worked in his kitchen, and that's how I saw him communicating with all his staff in terms of no non-patronizing, no levels of expectation. Obviously there's things that have to get done and there's instructions that have to be followed, but there's no meanness. He's a good guy. Yeah. I must say at the beginning of his cook along, I've never seen him looking more nervous out of the whole year.
Oh yeah.
So I appreciated that, even with all of his expertise, his experience, his years, his restaurant ownership and running and everything, that he still cares enough to get nervous. I actually admire that he still needed to sort of pump himself up and get over it. And like, these kids are already looking up to him. There's no need for him to be nervous, but I actually really appreciated seeing that rawness of him as well. I think it's relatable, and I think the kids can learn just as much from that as everything else.
I think what the main difference for me between last season of MasterChef and this season with Andy is that he's found his stride. It's him that we're seeing now. There's no affectations that, like trying to find his, like there were moments when Andy himself shone through last season, and that's what we want to see, is that, that authentic self.
Yeah, he wasn't doing an impression of a MasterChef judge. And again, like there were moments last season where he occasionally got wrapped up in the idea of an impression of a MasterChef judge. Whereas when he was genuine Andy, you were like, okay, that's really good. That's what you need. That's what you need to be doing, and that's where I think you should be going with that, and keep that going, because the more you keep that going.
And I wonder if that's partly because he's no longer in a position to be judging his peers.
Yep.
Yes.
Because I know that I feel more nervous talking to a room full of adults than I do my teenage students.
Yeah. And especially since these were all, there were a bunch of people there that have either on the show with him.
Yeah.
Or he's been, involved with in some way, shape or form. So there was a large element of that, I think, too. And I hope that means that we get that authentic Andy coming through.
I think he's only going to become more and more himself, which I'm excited. Good on him.
The imposter syndrome, which we all have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I love it.
And I like the fact they got them all to cook Mexican too the other night. I thought that was really cool. And Ruby in that challenge. And like the way that, again, normally in a cook-along, you don't get to tell them to slow down.
Yeah.
And it was the point where Ruby just turned around to Andy.
I'm ahead.
Yeah. But it was the moment when she turned around to Andy, when she was a mile behind, and Andy's still going. And she just goes, Andy, stop for a minute. And Andy stopped.
Yes.
And it's like, Ruby has the power to stop Andy Allen mid-cook and go, no. We don't continue till I say you continue, Andy.
I wonder how many people other than myself looked up where to buy a beautiful tortilla warmer that is that vibrant fuchsia.
Oh.
Tortilla warmer.
I found them.
Oh, well done.
Excellent.
I'll send you the link afterwards.
I'll talk to you after this. I know people were looking for as well the tortilla press.
They're far more readily available than the warmers. I just want one that colour. I love colour. It's so good.
I think we need to send one to Western Australia. Hi, Robert. How you going? You knew that shot was coming. Robert. For those who haven't heard, and again, if you've listened many times, you've heard many times, we were fortunate enough to be over a couple of years ago with Robert. And while we were over there, he decided to do a Mexican feast. Robert decided to make the tortillas from scratch. Kristie might have given him some alcohol. The tortillas took several hours. to the point where everyone in the room was like, yeah,
Was
great.
it make one, eat one, make one, eat one? Or...
It wasn't even that. It was start making one, get lost in a conversation around whatever was going on. Robert, all the food's ready. Can we have some tortillas, please?
And it wasn't due to a distinct lack of beef fat by any chance?
No, it wasn't.
What a great recipe additive. Oh, yeah.
That was really ingenious.
Yeah, and I thought it was really sweet how Andy had to go around and pour it out, to make sure that they didn't burn themselves. Oh, just those little kind considerations.
I have appreciated the extra care, safety, even on a mental health note in terms of sending more than one home at a time. Absolutely. So that there's always someone to share that experience with, to support one another. I don't like to see multiple leave, but I understand how beneficial it would be to not be doing that alone.
I have an idea, right? Now, hear me out. For all the MasterChef ex-contestants, why not get together and we start MasterChef Camp? We'll probably have to rename it unless Channel 10 come on board.
Did you say camp?
Camp, yes. Like you have a whole week of just cooking and camping and fun and like...
And no competition and no big clocks?
No competition, no big clocks. The kids come in, they get to go and do different workshops with like the different MasterChef contestants. I mean, hell, their parents will probably show up too if this is going on, because it'd be so much fun. In fact, you could do family camps, Now,
that sounds amazing.
Now, Channel 10, if you've heard this idea and you would like to take it up, we know that while you may necessarily not be going very well financially, we do know that CBS, your parent company, is. So we will accept royalties in the form of a check. So
I want a job as camp counselor. Like, I don't want any responsibility.
I'm sure Adam Mizzy in South Australia would be down for this. He's about to start a barbecue school, and he's run several American summer camps, so he'd be on board with that. There's a number of us that are multi-skilled and in that area. I think that would be a tremendous idea. Now we just need some amazing philanthropist going to give us some property, and I'm sure I can get a few people on board to...
I'll just add it to my list. I've already got like a pagan conference center in mind for when I win the lottery, and I'll just add to it like extra kitchens so we can do MasterChef.
That can be off the back of my podcast studio.
Yeah, anyway, there'll be plenty of goat to cook.
Plenty of goat.
So good.
Oh boy. So segueing out of that,
speaking of goat, did you know how many wild goats there are in New South Wales, and if they step onto your property, you're okay to do with whatever you like to them?
Do you know that my father once had a work ute, had his work ute hit by a goat?
Oh.
The goat was perfectly fine, but the car was really badly damaged.
The big goat.
They're brutal. Like,
yeah.
Hit a goat, see what happens.
They're pretty solid.
They're very solid. Can't segue out of that into any other way. Philo's amazing. I'm just going to jump straight away to Filo.
Okay, here's your segue. Goat, greatest of all time. Filo, go.
Beautiful. Yeah. There we go. Well done. Look at that. Elena Duggan, ladies and gentlemen. Elena Duggan.
I'm practicing.
Oh, yes. Good job. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. So, Filo.
Yes.
Again, I think that Ben has had the lion's share, rightly so, because as I said, producer's dream and just a lovely kid.
Far out. What a joyful, just ray of sunshine of a human.
He is. But if I had to look at it, while my mother did produce a photo that shows that I'm very similar to Ben at that age. While that happened,
I put it up on Twitter.
Yeah, she put it up on Twitter. While that might have happened, Filo matches my personality, and it's little things like, I've been drinking coffee since I was 7 or something like that. Which I've
black
coffee. 7, black coffee, black like my heart. That's how I drink it. Just his mantra of go and get all the food to snack on while you're cooking.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I don't know why none of us have thought of this before. No fear. This child has no fear.
No, and then as we pointed out last week with Vaya, Ben took that a step further.
Yeah.
By talking about, well, if you've got the gong, just run into the kitchen. Eat everything in the pantry you want to eat. Then walk out of the pantry and hit the gong. Right?
These kids are thinking.
Speaking of thinking around the gong, because I'll come back to Filo in a minute, because the gong brought something else up. I love the fact these kids are not mucking around with elimination. Like adults, do I play the pigeon strategy or not? The kids just walk around, bang, hit the gong. I'm done. I'm going up.
Dev last night was like, I'm not messing with this.
Dev's bang.
Exactly.
Laura last week walks up, bang, hits the gong. What's going on? I'm not stupid. I'm going up to the gantry.
But this is in terms of like they are willing to risk all sorts of things within those cooks, but those are smart risks. They know that they have got enough tools that they can correct something like that. This, they're like, no, that's not worth the risk, not even a little bit.
Plus, these people have been raised on MasterChef, and they've seen people go home with a pin. And
or an immunity idol. Just ridiculous.
Loki is sitting at home right now, just sort of twisting the pin, going, "Oh, memories."
He is actually doing amazing things. I don't know if you have.
Yes, I've seen.
Good. Yeah, he's just doing some wonderful things with scholarships for young chefs, young up and coming chefs, people who are needing a little bit of extra assistance. I've got a chat due with him at sometime soon. Yeah. So pin or no pin, he's doing wonderful things.
He could auction that pin and create more scholarships.
Exactly. I wonder, and that was what we actually raised that question. I want your opinion on this. For immunity, because we had Ryan come back. Sashi's son came back. If someone comes back and their parent or caregiver,
I vaguely remember seeing this. Tell me.
Had been on the show.
Yes.
And had an immunity pin.
Yes.
And took it home with them.
And birthed a baby junior pin?
Does it pass down? Can you translate the pin for the gong?
Is it, what's that thing called when you get a title? Is it a heralded title?
It's a hereditary peerage.
Is it generational trauma?
This idea of just passing the pin on to generations. Look, if you ever make it onto MasterChef, you can use that.
Let me tell you about the time that our great-great-grandfather was on MasterChef.
He had a pin, you see.
And here's the pin itself. And one day, as legend foretells, one of our generation, the finest amongst you, shall return with the pin and avenge his wrong. The legacy. There we go. That's a campfire story for MasterChef camp.
So
Could
good.
you imagine the friggin' s'mores?
Davidson.
Can you please? Oh, bring it.
Oh, Ben will be running the campfire s'mores.
I don't even need the s'more. I'm happy just to have the toasted marshmallow with these kids. The flavors.
Yeah,
it's been highly impressive. I mean, look, I said Vienna has followed the mantle of Amelia and all that, using Davidson plum every 2.5 seconds. Which is really good.
I liked her donut. I was there for the Davidson.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
I love a bit of tart to go with my sweet.
Yes.
It's a good combination.
Oh yeah.
It's an amazingly good combination. Filo, as I said, we did work out that Filo in that challenge though is a 40-year-old man, just in the body of a child. And then someone else tweeted out he's sitting outside one of the cafes in Melbourne. He's just sitting outside on the footpath. Just with a long black, just watching people walk past on a daily basis. That's Filo.
But
so
the
good.
moment between him and Jock last night when Filo thought his ganache was about to split and Jock's like, just breathe and just connected with him and breathed with him. Like, that's just...
And what I loved about that moment
awesome.
was they didn't stick with him through it and make it a massive drama. They cut away, they cut back, and they cut back to a voiceover of Filo going, anyway, my ganache eventually rose. And my ganache eventually was fine and got all fluffy. So they didn't make it a massive drama. They just went, it's a possible problem. Jock comes over and talks to him. He goes, just keep trying it. It'll work.
Yeah.
And then Filo just goes, it eventually worked.
This is what
it was great.
We need resilient MasterChef. Like these kids are like what they're going through and what they're showing us is resilience and how to cope with difficult times, which we all bloody need at the moment.
Absolutely.
I just want to see more of that.
So my question to Elena is, what donut topping would you have made?
Topping. Is this for Kristie or for Chris in terms of would it be matcha and yuzu or would it be...
Yes,
well,
matcha and yuzu.
Well,
perfect.
We don't need a podcast to plug. That's what we've got time for. No.
I struggle to go past spices. So I'm thinking some kind of maybe... I thought originally that I would have done like a Vietnamese coffee filling, but I'm leaning towards some of those chai kind of spices somewhere in there. Could have been like an apple filling with chai and white chocolate topping or something like that.
That sounds a little bit like a Filo style idea, because it sounds like the combination of an apple pie and a donut, which, as we now know, are Filo's two favorite foods on earth: apple pie and donut,
Like jocks.
together at last.
I read that. I read Melissa said that he ate 18 donuts that day.
I was going to say,
That'd
I
be
didn't
good.
see if there was a final tally, but every time you looked up, he had another one. And every bench he went to, there was just another donut in his hand, and they just kept looking at him, and he's like, well, why not? They're all there. I liked that they didn't make them make the donuts as well. I liked they focused.
I appreciated that. Yeah, I mean that celebrates the Morgan who came
Yes.
in, and it celebrates what they can do with it. I quite like that as well. There could be easily more challenges similar.
And it makes it accessible to kids at home. Like, there's been going, I've been making curds at home, and I'm really loving making curds. And here's an opportunity for parents who might just go out and buy some, cheapo cinnamon donuts to, cook a lemon curd with their kids to pop on a normal donut. So
make your own.
Absolutely. And I think there's quite a few cool hacks like that in terms of buying various big name supermarket like mud cakes and making a stack of cake, and how can you sort of dress it up and things like that. This is the perfect modeling for all of those sorts of things. DIY most steps, and then for some of those more time consuming, or if you didn't have an oven, you could totally do this, or if you didn't have a deep fryer, like there's ways to still have fun making it your own without having to do all of the things.
And it's going to give me an opportunity to try and expand my nephew and niece's just obsession with just pink donuts. Like, let's not.
Oh, really? Like this typical Simpsons, like.
Yes, just a pink donut. Like, I thought it was nice during lockdown. I sent them a box of donuts that you could get delivered, and I put half strawberry, half chocolate, because I thought my
Best
nephew
auntie ever.
Yeah, banned it for chocolate. No, there was a fight over the pink. So for his 3rd birthday last week, I just bought a big box of pink donuts.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how you win.
So next time I'm going to...
Are they able to articulate what it is about them?
I think it's genetic, because their father is also into pink donuts. And mother. So I just
Is this like the tongue twirling thing? You either can or you can't. You're either a pink donut lover or you're not.
By the pink donut, or you don't.
Yeah. I can do the clover, and I can do the twig, like the
Oh, clover. That's a challenging one.
but for me, I'm doing it right now.
It's great podcasting, I'll tell you that much. It's fantastic. It's fantastic podcasting. Another one.
Pro tip, Elena. Tongue trick.
Another person on the show I really want to have a bit of a conversation around. We mentioned it last week a little bit. Is Laura. She has this calm maturity and just this understanding of what she wants to be, what she wants to do, and what her goal is in life that I haven't seen out of a lot of adults. She is so calm the whole way through. Like in the cook-along with it, there was not one point in the cook-along where she was vaguely flustered. In fact, there was a moment in the cook-along where Vienna was just half a step behind on something and asked a question, and she stopped, turned around and just said to Vienna, do this, then turned back around and went back to what she was doing with minimum fuss. And she just churns through all these cooks. There's no problem.
Yes, very calm, cool, and collected. I liked also that when she got through, she had to hold her hands together to stop from flapping them about in excitement. Like she's so bubbly on the inside, but is like, no, just keep it together. Like she's a wonderful little one to watch.
I'd have to do the same thing.
To me, she gives off the same vibe as Amelia and Laura. Like, like adult Laura.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
They're very similar personality types.
Like when you got the cook going on, it's all kind of serious, getting into it, flowing along with it. Outside of it, it's all hand gestures and bouncy energy.
Yeah.
But the quality of food that they've managed to produce over the course of this, and we've talked about it a little bit last week, and we've seen more of it now this week. We still haven't had what you'd call an absolute abject failure.
Not at all.
They've produced dishes that have been so good that it's like there's a slight difference here or a slight difference there. And they've had to say it a couple of times, like we've literally we're splitting hairs on what it is that we're actually going to have to judge.
even the critique, they're really sort of taking it, they're having to say to them explicitly, we're having to be extra picky because you're that bloody good.
You're making it hard. Like, you're really making it difficult to work out how we're going to judge this.
Oh, no, I was just going to interject with a random thought that just popped into my head, and I've got to say it before I forget it. Sorry, this is really off topic. Okay, kids are awesome, but another book character. Okay, so we've got Dawn from the Babysitters Club in Tiff.
Yes.
All right. Austenite put forward that Ruby is exactly like, got the hair like Silky from the Faraway Tree, the fairy Silky. Sorry.
Yes, and that image came up. Yes, no. So again, if you've got a which child is that, again, send it to us on Twitter. Happy to read them out on the podcast. No, that's right. I do remember that came up midweek with that.
Oh,
so,
cute.
something else that came up that we really would like to talk about is appetite for change.
I've got one. Are you hungry?
Yeah, you do. You have a quite a prominent one coming out in terms of podcasting.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, as
cross-pollination.
As cross-pollination, yes. Watch out for the bees. Watch out for the bees. So
we had a swarm a couple of houses down last week, actually. A swarm of bees. Yes, we had to stand afar, and it was very intriguing. I've not seen Jonathan that still for a long time.
I don't know what that is.
A swarm of bees?
You needed Andy to be running towards you in a beekeeper's outfit. That would have been...
Yes, well, there was a beekeeper who Eric was so excited. He's like, well, if you've got your suit, come on over. And Eric's like, no, I'm just excited. Like, I don't have a suit. What are you talking about?
If you've got your suit.
We're like, we're interested, but we don't, we're not beekeepers.
We're
like, this is a suburb.
We're enthusiastic onlookers. Okay, that's what we are. Although that now brings up a new thing we can have at Masterchef camp.
Yes.
Yeah, we can have, like, you know, beekeeping.
Yeah, like total animal husbandry, you know, like sustainable, like paddock to plate, sea to...
No, don't. No.
Shining sea.
Let's just talk...
Scale.
Yeah, whatever he called it.
I don't know where we were going.
But more importantly, sustainability. So again, that works beautifully back into appetite for change. So
it certainly does. We're talking all things food systems and using food as a vehicle for social change.
So I'm kind of excited. So you know, who were your podcast influencers? Just she's so gonna say Hamish and Andy, and that's gonna be the end of it.
No.
Do you know what? I've never listened to that one.
No, neither have I.
I was hoping for one of like the true crime ones, so we'll be talking about
cereal. It's cereal. No, it's actually about breakfast cereals. I really like breakfast cereals. All right.
So
different
good.
kind of podcast. No,
no, I've enjoyed being a guest on yours and a few others, and it's I love listening to podcasts more than anything, and I think more so during pregnancy and early motherhood, during many a walk in the pram, not me in the pram, obviously, and or in the car, trying to get someone to sleep when your arms are just too tired to keep on rocking them. I've listened to more podcasts in the last 2.5 years than prior to that. And I take a lot of joy from them, and I sort of mix it between entertaining and informative, just depending on the mood. And I love that there are so many wonderful ones out there, but there's none like mine, which I'm really excited about. So it's we'll be interviewing big and small in terms of people that you may know, people that you probably will never have heard of, but maybe would love to know about them. But people doing amazing things with food, small communities up onto a global level, really sort of shaking things up in terms of diversity, inclusion, sustainability, future-proofing, pandemic-proofing food systems. But they're all amazing. Like, I don't think you can not be inspired by our guests in some way or another. And a lot of them are born out of a resilience response to something that they themselves have gone through or seen or so it's that's also a really cool thing. It's a lot of what my co-host and I do in our spare time anyway, but we're feeling a little bit selfish keeping all these good stories to ourselves. So we figured now's a great time to share them.
I really love, by the way, that Rob, your co-host Rob Rees, on Twitter has disruptor as part of his Twitter handle and the part of his Twitter sort of bio.
Oh yeah.
So it's all these things: CEO, founder, policy fellow, board director, disruptor.
Absolutely.
That's the nickname you want. You want to have that. You want to be the disruptor. You don't want to be the I'm happy to go along with it person.
All of those things, and he still humbly won't actually ever produce his full CV because it's that impressive and that sort of, oh my God, what have I done with my life? So he really knows his stuff in terms of food. He worked at a Michelin star restaurant as well, the leading chef there for a number of years, but that wasn't enough. He wanted to actually give back and not only serve people who had access to that. He wanted to actually start his own charities and feed many a million UK child in terms of their school kids programs, food for setting up canteens and healthy options for getting everyone fed, making sure that everyone at least has one meal a day, which as a teacher I'm sure you see all the time that we
it's far more common than I think a lot of people think it is, to be honest.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been involved with a few different breakfast clubs at schools, and it's not always who you think, and it's always full. If not, you run out of whatever you're feeding. So I've seen it work in schools, and Rob's seen it work in schools in a completely different area. So obviously our training with food is opposite ends of the spectrum and globe. But I think that brings great perspective. It's he's a joy to work with, and I think everyone else is going to appreciate him, but it's really not about us so much. We'll be always wrapping things up and offering some tips and tricks food wise and having a bit of a reflection, but it's definitely about all of the amazing work that we're able to introduce everyone else to that is going on in our communities.
And probably a lot less swearing than we've got too, which is, a plus.
I can't guarantee that.
Less swearing. You've heard Kristie on a good day.
Don't listen to Chris. Like, pro tip, swearing's good for adults. Like,
we actually have considered having an on-air swear jar so that whoever owes whoever at the end of it, because depending on what we're talking about, we do get pretty passionate. And sometimes there's only certain words that will work.
Except not on this podcast at the moment, which, again, is real. You have no idea how hard we're working to not swear. We only had one get through last week, and we took that one out. So it's very rare that I edit, but I actually went back last week, everybody. We only had one mishap.
Yeah.
And I pulled that one mishap out of there because we've made a pledge. So
well, I won't even begin to start on
I think what's working my favorite at the moment is that there's a lot of stuff going on at work that's making me get all my swears out at work. And
I like that.
Home, I can just go to town without worrying, and I get it all out, and I come on the podcast, and I can be PG.
Yes, you can.
Wonderful. I'm like Miss Helena.
Whereas at work, I have to be very PG, and therefore I think we're swearing out of the car on the way home.
Yes.
Usually traffic. So where are people going to be able to find it? Obviously.
Appetite for Change. We've got Instagram and Twitter, both under that. You'll straight away see a photo of Rob and myself laughing hysterically, not at a salad, but at some cooking going on at a course we were running, and it will all be fancy and graphic designed pretty soon, but that's there as a landing page to make sure that you know that you're in the right spot. You can see our faces, and it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever you download from. I'll be posting links regularly to begin with to send you in the right direction. But we'll be definitely posting more specific information to each of the episodes and about our guests and where to find them on those social pages, and just reminders from our personal ones. So I know that'll be a little bit of a transition, but we want to make sure that you guys have, if you ever want to reach out or connect with the people that we're interviewing or the causes that they are doing amazing work in, that's going to be the way to do it.
And I can sort of recommend, again, it's highly, and we say this, you've heard obviously our chats with Elena on the podcast, and they're always very much insightful. They're always really sort of detailed, and we end up in really good in-depth conversations. So, you know, I think that this is going to be something that will be very much worth having a bit of a listen to.
Absolutely. You've had big changes in our perspective on things over the couple of years. Look at us, like old friends.
Old
friends. Decades now we've been through 2020 together.
Totally.
All millennia since this year started has been great.
What day is it?
But obviously, and it'll be an amazing thing to go and listen to. I highly recommend it.
Very grateful for your ongoing support and your tips and pointers whenever I've had any podcast questions.
I think my first one was a microphone helps, and that's always good. So, you know,
I got one.
You got one. We're halfway there. So, in terms of, before we finish up, obviously, just to go back to the sort of the show, has there been anything else that sort of struck you either seriously or humorously, or anything you sort of saw through the week in particular that sort of stuck with you a bit, Elena?
This week in particular?
I had a couple of things. While you ponder that for a minute, mine was Ben.
Yeah.
And of course it was Ben. I need to narrow it down.
Sorry, I'm just going to go shock horror.
It was when Ben was starting his thing yesterday. And they went, "Good job, Ben," from the gantry. And Ben looked up at them and said, "I've just added some cream and sugar to each other. I haven't done anything yet. When I've done something more, then you can good job me."
And while we're on the good job, Ben, when he's patting himself on the back in the interviews.
Yes.
And just,
And the follow-up to that as well was 5 minutes after saying, "Don't good job me, I haven't done anything," was when he turned around to the gantry and started going, "Let's go, Ben, let's go." And started his own chat. And you're like, on one hand, Ben, no, I'm modest. No, please don't. Ben, let's go, Ben. Let's go.
Permission to be complex, people. This is wonderful. You can be as many layers and as many different versions of yourself all in one cook.
And everyone just went, yes.
He just
so
wanted,
good.
He wanted he didn't want false praise. He wanted...
Absolutely.
It was lovely. I thought that was amazing. I don't know.
The mutual celebration of one another it really is so genuine and sincere and warm. And I like when they acknowledge something that they've learned from each other as well. They sort of go, "Oh, that's cool." I like that they, in terms of, again, their cultural heritage and cooking, etc., the wonderful technical aspects of I'm just remembering it because beautiful pastries. That was just so beautiful, so beautifully done, so delicate, so gorgeous.
And how he said offhand, he goes, "This is something that as a family we really appreciate because it takes a lot of time." And I'm like, and you've just whipped it up in this like 75 minutes.
Phenix last night, and obviously it didn't go well for her at the end. Obviously she ended up going home.
Her plating.
But well, first of all, yeah, Phenix was plating the other night, which deserved its own award.
Jeez.
That was just one of the most incredible.
Entered into the Archibald.
100%. But the follow-up is then last night, where she starts off by going, "I'm just making my own pandan essence."
Oh,
and you're
so
like,
good.
What? It's just seriously, you're making, okay. And she's like, "We make this at home all the time, and you know, this is just something I do all the time." It's like, again, it goes back to what we said last week with Ben just standing there and going, "I'm just going to whip a couple of pita up because I've got some time." Yeah. Sure, Ben. I don't know. It's just been, it's something where there's just multiple things that just appear out of absolutely nowhere.
It really is a celebration of if you can see it, you can be it. These kids are being raw with their emotions, highs, lows, everything in between. They're embracing who they are, who their family is, any challenges that they've gone through, and they already know that all of those things make them this beautiful, complex, layered, strong individual. I feel a lot more hopeful for the future with these guys leading the way.
And I kind of
just my dining future, by the way.
I kind of feel again that it's just one of the positives. There's a negative and a positive coming up in the coming week, which is the negative is it's only Monday night So there's no Sunday
The
night.
other negative is that because of border closures, I don't get to be there. I so badly wanted to be a
that's
guest.
that's a massive disappointment.
2020,
Yeah, again, this is why you're coming as a counsellor to camp when we can open everything.
The director.
Yes,
Camp director.
camp director of Masterchef
This
camp.
one time, I wasn't allowed a junior Masterchef, and it nearly broke me.
So, but I think the downside next week, obviously, is it's Monday, Tuesday. There's no Sunday night episode.
Yeah.
But the positive means that obviously it stretches the series a little bit longer. And
Absolutely.
that's a really, really good thing. And while you obviously very disappointingly can't be there in person because of border closures, etc., it doesn't mean they're without someone with a gold trophy. Because on Monday night, Amelia visits.
Yes.
So that'll be fascinating. That'll be fascinating to sort of watch her interact with the kids as well. And I mean, we might possibly.
Well, I don't know if you follow much of her, but she is one of the most impressive, exciting aunties ever, and I'm sure also gives her nephews and nieces donuts, etc., etc. But she is quite hilarious.
And as I mentioned on Twitter this evening, our podcast next week will be on Monday night, not Tuesday night, and the reason is we will be having Amelia on the show to talk about her appearance.
Yes.
Plus, also, a little series called Back to Win. Don't know if you heard of it. Something she got her name on a trophy. That's a certain Elena.
Because she back to one.
she back to one. She back to one. Okay, we'll go with that now. That's it. Her episode is so going to be called Back to One. So
what an awesome lady. She had more time for me than a lot of others at a time when I needed it post my show, and just was very generous of spirit and kind, and I'll be forever grateful for that. She knows that, but I just think it's I was thrilled to celebrate her this year.
I hope she's looked after your name on the trophy. I really do. I hope she's buffed it. I hope there's no scratches. I mean, every time they show it, all I think of is that poor plate. It's been through a lot.
I don't know where they keep it or what the MasterChef contestants do after. Like, I'm envisioning like something
well,
like.
I love that her parents' commitment. Like they had a replica made for her. In year 7, I won the Citizenship Shield. I got to at least keep it for a year and then give it back.
Oh my God.
But this, yeah, we hold it like twice. I mean, you hold it for a really long time.
I didn't even get to hold my scholarship. Like, the only thing I've had engraved my name on is a scholarship trophy, like plaque.
Oh, you didn't get to hold it for a year?
I didn't get to hold it.
When
There.
I was in year 1, we had a koala that you got for being student of the week.
When you were looking like Ben.
Exactly. It was year 4. Thank you very much, Elena. I'll have you know. It's
last week.
It's year 4. Last week, and you got to keep the koala for a whole week.
I couldn't get a koala for home.
I mean. Oh dear. So again, I didn't get to hang on to that for that long. So yeah, obviously, I mean, I said I just hope again your name is in good condition. It's not all, again, there's not a lot of dings in it. And the last thing I want to ask you, obviously, as someone who knows MasterChef and appreciates MasterChef deeply, is who do you think's looking after the Vespa? Because obviously there's a bicycle in place of the Vespa, which is a good call, it's a smart call. Who's got the Vespa?
Well, it's not allowed within 5 kilometers of the studio, right?
No, it's not. That's part of the problem. I think they can't even be doing deliveries at the moment. So
interesting.
I wonder who's. Maybe Melissa took it home. I could see her on the Vespa. Jock tried to take it last time. We know that.
Possibly like someone like Sarah Claire, someone who lives remote, that could, actually benefit from it.
By they flew it to Tasmania.
Yeah, and now she's sending her kids out delivering meals from her restaurant, like, because the kids can't be at school.
So they'll be delivering meals on the back of the Vespa.
Yeah. It's a rural community. They can do that.
If anyone happens to be listening,
drove his car when he was 12.
If anyone happens to be listening from MasterChef, and we know you are, you're telling us, if somebody can reach out anonymously and tell us who has the Vespa, I'd like to know, because we want to make it a feature of MasterChef Camp.
Yes.
Vespa lessons.
And red bikes, for kids, Vespas for adults
No, I just think everyone had a Vespa person.
Okay, all right.
So
it's a rural property.
but I can guarantee
Or everyone on bikes, like the Netherlands, and reduce our carbon footprint.
exactly.
They can just be electric Vespas.
And you know what
This
that
is
is?
true.
You know
Solar
what's true?
powered.
And you know what that represents?
What?
That represents an appetite for change. And with that, there's a segue. You can take that one with you, Elena. And with that, thank you very much as always. It is an absolute delight and a pleasure to be able to chat to you at any point in time.
And hopefully this is my best quality recording so far because of this new microphone.
Your voice is rich and lustrous. There might have been there might have been a bit of a blip early on where you might hear Kristie say the phrase, "What is Somni doing?" Because about 30 seconds into the recording, she ran across the keyboard and
Not me.
No, not you.
Our cat Somni.
Not who might have started.
You ran across the keyboard, Kristie?
It wouldn't be out of character. And she started Siri up and hit a bunch of buttons. So there might be a little bit of a glitch at the start. That was a cat. That wasn't anyone else. So be that as it may, thank you for going through all of that. It's always a pleasure. Your voice quality is amazing on this. So your microphone is top notch. Until Monday when we talk to Amelia to add to our collection of winners row.
So good.
I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
That's later, and we'll catch you all later. So yeah.